Ethan Baker, as well as retired Detroit Police Assistant Chief Steve Dolan, are in Studio C to talk to us here tonight. And we, of course, thank you both for joining us here on The Pulse. We really think that your perspectives are important here, and so thanks for the time. Mayor Baker, you see the pictures, of course, of what's happening. Let's just bring it closer to home. Here in Detroit already at the Federal Building, and we know that there are going to be a lot of people out in Metro Detroit, including in Troy, protesting. What is the city doing to make sure that these protests remain calm?
Yeah, well, first, I don't think you're going to see anything in Troy on Saturday like you're seeing in Los Angeles.
Sure.
Like you're seeing. That's not what's going to happen. I think there's a pretty good history of some peaceful protesting happening in the city of Troy over various issues and times over the years. But our police department works hand in glove with those who are wanting to protest and be part of their First Amendment right to do so. And they ensure that there's going to be safety. Obviously, our police department takes any threats of violence or violence very, very seriously. But there's a huge difference between rioting and peaceful protest. But Troy Police Department's going to be there making sure the peace is kept and working with the people who are protesting, regardless of what their message is.
I want to talk to you more about that very important right that we all have, whether you're, a Trump loyalist who believes that what he's doing is right, or you're completely against it. You have a right to be out there, but there's a way to do it. We'll talk about that in a moment. Steve Dolan, man, you spent decades on the streets. You understand, and you've seen your share of these.
Yes.
When you hear Alex from LA basically say things have waned a bit and it was contained to one area, what goes through your mind in terms of strategy from a city point of view?
Thank God, because now it's narrowing down the area. You can concentrate your officers or any other people you bring in, whether it's feds, state, and contain the area. I agree that Troy's not going to be that bad at all. And even during the Black Lives Matter protest, Detroit wasn't as violent as some of these other cities. We worked with the protesters, again, the peaceful protesters. You try to start a dialogue and say, look, this is what we're going to do. We'll give you this. You got to give us this. And it's a win-win if they protest and no one gets hurt. They get the message across, the media gets out there. Not that he's going to change his mind about that. Deporting people, but they get their message out there.
It's so important to have a proactive leadership stance that comes out before something like this. And that's one of the reasons that we wanted to do this. We know that it's not going to be like the pictures we saw in LA as the LA protests are waning. But again, we're just trying to see people being able to get out there for the first time and express themselves. As a leader, Mayor Baker, talk about that right that people have to come out and be able to say, hey, I don't like what's happening.
Well, sure. One of our First Amendment of the Constitution is that right to free speech. And obviously, as a city, we can regulate the time, place, and manner, which we do as long as we do it uniformly. And we make sure that we allow protests of all natures in our city as long as we follow the same rules. But that is our First Amendment right. We have a First Amendment right to speak out against things we view differently, and that's happened by Republicans, by Democrats, everybody in between. We don't have a First Amendment right to incite any violence or to be violent in any way. So that's where the line is always drawn. Again, but any time you have a few thousand people come out, and we had a couple thousand at the last protest in Troy at an intersection, which is a busy intersection near I-75 and lots of traffic on Big Beaver. But when you have that many people come together, there's always risk for something bad to happen. So our police department does work with them, with great community policing, to ensure that everyone stays calm and does the right thing, but still has that First Amendment right to speak out.
But the First Amendment right that people have to come out and say, hey, I don't like what's happening, and then you have people from perhaps the other side who come out and say, I don't like your protests. That's often where you find the real division there. Talk about that for.
Well, I think that's where you can create any kind of, there can create conflict that can lead to violence. I don't think that's going to happen in Troy. I maybe shouldn't be so bold to say something like that, but I feel really good about the people that are going to be in Troy protesting on Saturday on both sides of the issue. And they're protesting about how they view the president, right? I think their protest is based on, no kings is what they're calling it. But there are going to be people there who adamantly are opposed to President Trump, and there's going to be people there who love the president. We've seen in the past, yes, they may point fingers and laugh at each other, some of their signs and some of their things, but at the end of the day, they're all exercising their First Amendment right as Americans, and I see proud Americans on both sides of that issue, which is what's really nice for me to see.
Steve, I want to talk to you a little bit about what happens in terms of the appearance for protesters when they see in Los Angeles. Let's get away from Metro Detroit for a moment and go to LA for a second here. When you see those pictures in LA, so many of the protesters, I hear two different schools of thought. One will say, you see the National Guard come in and hey, I can't mess with them. But then others get more inflamed because of it. What have you noticed in your career?
When they bring the National Guard in, it's because you're violent. If you've had peaceful protests, you're not going to see the National Guard. You're not going to see all law enforcement all geared up, ready for a riot. You're not. If you're peaceful, and usually the people in front are peaceful. It's the activists, the violent activists that are cowering behind the peaceful activists that start throwing, urine-filled water balloons, rocks, bricks, railroad spikes, incendiary devices. And I mentioned this earlier, you may beat me, but then they run like little...
May have to bleep that. Not
you might have to beat
but
me.
we got
But
it.
anyway, the point is, they run and hide, and the peaceful activists, their whole point that they're trying to make is lost because of the violence.
Well, I think that's really an important point, Ethan. Mayor Baker, a little bit about that. When you have a few bad actors, and I don't care if you support what the bad actors, you think they're doing a good thing by coming out there, those are the ones who Mayor Duggan and those pastors and others, including you, told, get out of here, go home, we don't want you here. I'm sure there's a message like that for you that you have for people.
Well, sure, the bad actors are the ones that steal the attention, so the story gets put on them as opposed to what the protest is supposed to be about. So it does a disservice to those who are protesting in the first place, and maybe that's one of the reasons they do it. But let me also say very clearly, the minute anybody incites any violence or does anything violent in the city of Troy, we're prepared to take action. We're going to do it the right way, but we are a nation of laws, and that's from the top to the bottom. So please don't bring any violent stuff to Troy.
When you talk a little bit about the chain of command, and for so many years you've been doing this, Steve, how many times have you seen things get worse because larger battalions or more of the gear comes out?
Well, as a rule, the mobile field force, we try to stay off-site so it doesn't look like there's a heavy presence. I had a protest in Wayne State one time, and we talked, and they said, we're going on the expressway, just to let you know we're going to block it. And I said, no, you're not. Yes, we are. I said, no, you're not. And I called the bus, and I said, if you come down, you're going on the bus. You're not blocking the lodge. There's a lodge at Warren. And they looked at me, I said, I'm good if you're good. You can have the service drive. To their credit, they took the service drive. There wasn't this huge military buildup, simply a blue bus. And people standing there with zip ties like, if you're coming down, it's on you. He told you, he didn't get forceful, and we had a good dialogue, and it was a peaceful protest. But we always keep the mobile field force off away so people don't think, oh my gosh, there's an armed force ready to invade us.
At the end of the day, you have to remember that these police officers, these ICE agents, these are all men and women who go home to families just like we do in the communities we serve, and especially the National Guard troops. Those are people from your state who are being deployed, and it's not really their call. So you have to understand that as well.
Right, absolutely. I mean, everyone's got a job to do, and you may not like the job they have to do or the reason they're being called in to do it, but it doesn't mean you should take action against it. I mean, there's other ways.
There's a way to do this, and that's what we're noticing in this conversation, and we hope that reinforced that ahead of the protest this weekend. Mayor Ethan Baker of Troy, good to see you. Thank you, Steve Dolan, for your time as usual. We appreciate both your perspectives. We're keeping this conversation going after the break. Two people you know well, Alexis Wiley and Rocky Rachkowski, weigh in next. You're watching The Pulse here on Fox 2.